Sunil, you're on mute. What did you have any questions or you wanted to share some insights?
Sure, Naveen. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to be here today. Nice meeting everyone. So I had some insights from my days at Anthem. I was a BISO for Anthem Digital, which is now Carelon Digital, part of Elevance Health, after all the rebranding which happened a few years ago. So some of the programs I ran were AppSec, Zero Trust, and Chang mentioned earlier about the short-lived certificates. In fact, we implemented an open source um, a specification called SPIFFE, which is Secure Protection Identity Framework, and the runtime is Spire. So a lot of the big companies are part of that specification, like Google, Amazon, and so predate a big architecture roadmap and pattern. And now I see a little bit of that, not specifically SPIFFE, but Zero Trust coming into the agentic space. Given that MCP and all these are acting as a gateway, so I was curious if anyone has implemented, or you're seeing that Zero Trust or agentic trust is becoming a big phenomenon, or it's going to be a big next step for how to make sure these agents are trustworthy and follow the zero trust pattern as well. So I also lead a security MSSP, mostly on the ASPM side, vulnerability management. That's my background since I left Anthem. So I wanted to hear the panel's feedback on the agentic trust side of things.
So as I was saying, when we do the DevSecOps methodology, the deployment is least privileged, right? So instead of zero trust, we call it least privileges, meaning just having this right amount of privilege that you need for anything. So this starts off with the least privileged network security policy. So only systems that need to talk to each other have ACLs to allow. Systems have authentication authorizations with themselves, mutual TLS, and then a client or a server would have authentication and authorization to do that. And then if a human operator is involved, then they would also have authentication authorization. So if you look at this pattern of deployments, regardless of what you deploy, whether it's an agent talking to an LLM or just a client or a server, we follow this methodology. So it's nothing. So it's not one-off. It's how we deploy. And that takes care of 90% of the problems. And then in, like I was saying earlier, LLMs and agents have chats going on, which needs prompt engineering methodologies and guardrails to ensure that content is also secure. So that's the philosophy we follow. I think Brian has his hand up.
Yeah. Brian, please go ahead.
Yeah, I actually, one of my things is related to what Sunil was just asking about. So two observations that I'm seeing, and I'm at a company called Akinox that does CNAP with a very strong pillar around AI security. And one of the things that I've been surprised since I joined and have been talking to customers is how little the security team understands what an AI app even looks like. So going beyond sort of using AI to help security, but actually the security team trying to secure the AI apps the company has, it's been really eye-opening just how little the teams are prepared, to the point where I'm working on some training to just explain to them, like, what are the basics? Like, how do you put agentic code or an MCP server into a sandbox? How do you put a prompt firewall in place, regardless of using Akinox? But it's been really interesting to see when you go into customer and start showing them, hey, your model, your code is open to issues, and you've got a data set that you don't want exposed, and your app is exposing this data, and they're not even thinking about that. And the other aspect is I advise a company called Lab One, which is sort of a dark web monitoring company. And I did some research and have also talked to Amazon, Microsoft, and a few others. And what we are seeing is the attackers not just using AI to write malware, et cetera, but they're actually applying AI to the data loads, the data packs that are stolen with info stealers, et cetera, to pull out sort of that magic combination of data and weaponizing the data very quickly. So I'm also talking to companies where it's like when your data is exposed, you need your AI that is helping security. You need your spam filters, et cetera, to have an AI level understanding of the data that has just been exposed by your company, so that it can actually take action. So it's been very interesting seeing sort of how companies are and aren't looking at using AI and AI-based applications, as well as how the attackers are using it.
Thank you, Brian. Anyone has any on that? And we are almost coming close to the time. So I just wanted to call out a lot of new folks have joined. We've got Clint here, and Derek obviously has been there. And Brooke, thank you for being here. Brooke, do you have any other insights in your gigantic organizations if you're using Agentic AI? I know you're on mute, Brooke.
No, that's okay. Any other insights? I heard somebody else mention this early in the call. It was early when I joined because I could not join on time. I think one of the challenges is finding people that are good at putting AI into practice for applications. I feel just talking to some people that we've interviewed is people just want to get in AI and they want to get into some AI that can make them a quick buck, etc., rather than looking at actually how they'd use it. And I feel like all the applicants we are seeing are not truly mature in understanding the space, what they want, and really where it's going. And that's just a comment that I had on particular challenges myself. I don't know if anybody else has that issue as me. I was just, it's my big challenge right now.
Cham, I know you have a very diversified global organization as well.
Right now,
Brooke is head of products at Rakuten and one of my esteemed customer as well. Thank you, Brooke, for being here.
Right. No, nothing more to add. I think this was a great discussion. Sorry, the last couple of minutes I got pulled into another emergency, but it's all cool now. No, thank you. I know we're at time, but it's like what everyone else is saying. It's an evolving field right now. AI is the hot hype. Everybody wants to get into it. Do they have the right skill set? I can't comment on that. Not seeing it yet. But certainly there's, just like shadow IT in the past, the shadow AI, there's lots of things going on. And hats off to Dr. Ahuja, for putting in that structure at Pure. A lot of respect, both for the company and you. Amazing you made that happen.
Sunil, would you like to provide any insights or anything from your experience? I know you're involved with a lot of DPDP stuff over there. It looks like you're on mute. Anyone else? James? Anyone, whoever wants to provide any insight or any questions, please, this is your opportunity. That's why we call it an interactive CISO roundtable. Didn't want to just make it because I know all of your
can pose a
experts.
question.
Yes.
I think, Ratinder, you were talking about all these different agents and the questions came up around authentication of these agents. Recently, or just last week, I was in a conversation with a company called AuthID that we're considering some partnerships. And one use case showed up that I wonder I can share with you guys, and maybe we can follow up after the call. And the topic came out like we're hiring all these agentic agents, let's call them, right? It's as if like you were to bring consultants, right? Contracts to do certain work, whether it's audit, manager firewalls, and so forth. You onboard them, HR onboards them, you have some sort of a governance, whether it's through HR or some sort of a monitoring. As you bring up these agents, how are we doing this monitoring, right? How are we going to do the governance on these agents that are the right thing? Initial badge is an issue. You issue a badge, but then as you add them to your processes, right? Is there a room for us to be able to pin identity to an agent. So if I have an agent that acts as a proxy for me for that persona, and somebody says, okay, here's a firewall, the agentic looks at the ServiceNow tickets, goes ahead and implements that. Traditionally would be a person, and that person I have a list privilege. If that person is a representation of someone else, do we need to do pinning of these agents to identity? Is that something we need to consider?
So I ask people, forget agents and forget the LLM for a minute. If I just ask you to write a program that does what you, or pull, call the APIs, pull the firewall policy, do the audit, give me the results, right? Just write a Python program, right? And then I say, okay, hey, secure this, right? And you would say, hey, no problem. I know exactly how to put this in a secure container. I know exactly how to give it an ID, how it's going to come under KSPM, Kubernetes security. So you would do it. Just because there's an API call going to an LLM doesn't invalidate all the other things you do. So 99% is just doing basic security practices correctly. And then perhaps 1% variation comes in because of the chit chat between prompts and things like that. So that's how I decompose it. And I challenge people saying, if I didn't tell you this was an LLM, I just told you this is a database, you make an API call, how would you secure it, right? So start there and say, if I can do that properly, then you can ask extra questions saying, okay, there's a prompt involved. What do I do about that? And you'll find 99% is good security DevSecOps methodologies. 1% is something extra.
So going back to first principles, I mean,
yes,
I love that approach.
Which most people will, the DLP, we started that when? 2003?
Yep.
Tony?
Yep. I remember that.
So a lot of people will come and say, oh, I'm going to sell you a AI firewall. I said, okay, let's walk through it. And it turns out it's, nothing more than a SASE or a edge proxy plus some keyword monitoring, right? So
thank you. This conversation came out was very, very interesting. Like, we're thinking about use cases of ITAR. I could see something, but I just didn't know that's an immediate pain point or not. There's certainly some use cases. We've talked about certificate pinning. I'm thinking maybe is there something that to pin some sort of, like, who's responsible? It's more of an attribution, right? If that thing goes bad, is the person who executed the agentic AI that needs to go through corrective action plan, or is the person who designed it? That problem is not solved in my head, right? And I think that's something, as we figure these new employees coming to our environment, we need to kind of adopt to solve that 1% or 2% issue that may be, because they're obfuscated and you don't want to move so fast and they do so many things faster, better than the human can do, and we need them. But I think that's the N+1 problem that we need to solve. And I think that my conversation was the same thing. If we do go back to the first principles and we do this by design, then we're not stuck in having to wait for the next kick-ass AI security product to come solve our day.
Reinvent the wheel. So
I wanted to ask if anyone wants to hear Mike. I know you've recently joined CISO as another company. How do you see this whole role of agentic AI before we just wrap it up? So I thought it'd be great to hear from your side, because you're part of a pretty, I guess, company which has been around for a while as well, right?
We have been, since 1981. So I think there are different facets. One is, are you building agents or building the capability to build agents? So with that, there's everything from classic secure software development to making sure you've got ML ops, or what they sometimes are starting to call AI SecOps, for your AI version of DevSecOps. And then if you're using agents, I think of it as a combination of a pseudo person, right? So that needs an identity, and so identity comes into play. You need the ability to monitor what the agent's doing, just like you would any type of employee. It needs to, be able to adhere to company policies and so on. I think that it makes sense from a productivity perspective, to have kind of fleets of agents working among themselves. If each agent has this kind of like subspecialty, then trying to piece together the overall like orchestration of what you want is a bit how I look at it. So those are my thoughts.
And Vida, if you have any insights or anything you want to share, appreciate your being here.
I wanted to ask, how is the role of the CIO changing with all of this?
Well, we have only one CIO left right now, unless there are other ones who are playing the CIO role.
No, from the perspective of the CISO, how is the role of the CIO changing?
Oh, okay.
I think that's a very deep philosophical question.
That's for a beer
CIO
after
started, what, 20
this.
years ago, career is over. Well, hell, I'm still here.
Okay.
Whether it's a chief data officer, information security officer, or whatever, it all starts with information, right? And it just evolved into all these multiple things. I don't know. It depends what's the next Gartner hype. They keep bringing things up. Things evolve. Let's see. That's all I can tell you.
All
Okay.
I
right.
have a hell of a lot of CIO buddies. We all are trying to solve different problems, and the problems get bigger. And then you need more focus, and then you end up with a chief data officer, chief whatever officer, in my opinion. And different companies just have, it depends upon what they're looking for. Today, data, AI, there's also chief AI officer now. What problem are we trying to solve? And are companies trying to get more focused into the particular business problem they're trying to solve?
Yeah.
And in my opinion, the root is still information or
Yeah.
application. To me, AI is just another application, which is a lot smarter, perhaps
Yeah.
more dangerous. And that's how I take it, and different people will have their own opinions and they're entitled to it.
Thank you, everyone. Really
Thank
have
you
a
so
wonderful
much.
evening.
I
We really
appreciate it.
appreciate
Yeah.